The galaxy was old. It had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. It had watched stars die and new ones be born. It had witnessed wars that burned entire systems to ash. But in all its long history, there was one rule that every species followed without question. One law that was written in the blood of those who had broken it long ago. Do not harm the human children. Nobody remembered why. The elder races refused to speak of it. When young species asked, the old ones would look away with fear in their many eyes. They would change the subject. They would leave the room. Some would even tremble at the memory of stories passed down through generations. The humans themselves never explained it. They smiled their strange smiles and said nothing. They went about their business, trading, exploring, and building. They seemed so peaceful, so kind, so harmless. Ambassador was one of these peaceful humans. She had served on the Galactic Council for 15 years. She was small, even by human standards. Her black hair was always tied back neatly, and she wore simple clothes that made her look more like a teacher than a diplomat. Her voice was soft, and she never raised it, not once in 15 years. The other ambassadors liked her. She brought them gifts from Earth, small things like chocolate and tea and paper books. She remembered their birthdays and the names of their children. She laughed at their jokes and listened to their problems. She was, by all accounts, the kindest person on the council. Her brother was different. Admiral commanded the human fleet. Unlike his sister, he rarely smiled. He was tall and quiet, with eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. He attended council meetings sometimes, standing silently behind like a shadow. He never spoke unless spoken to, and even then his answers were short. The other species found him unsettling. There was something about the way he stood, perfectly still, like a predator waiting. Something about the way his eyes tracked movement in the room. Something about the calm in his voice that suggested depths of violence kept carefully locked away. But the human fleet had not fired a weapon in 200 years. Their ships were old, some said, outdated. The humans had grown soft with peace. They were traders now, not warriors. The stories about them were just that, stories, myths, legends told to frighten children. Believed this more than anyone. Was from a species called They were large creatures, twice the size of humans, with thick skin and 4 powerful arms. They had conquered 12 systems in the last century and believed themselves to be the strongest power in the galaxy. Himself had led armies. He had burned worlds. He feared nothing. He especially did not fear the humans. They are weak, he said to the council one day, his deep voice echoing through the great chamber. Look at them, small, fragile, they break so easily. Why do we treat them as equals? Ambassador looked up from her notes. She did not seem offended. If anything, she seemed tired, like she had heard this speech many times before. The first law exists for a reason, said Elder Mox, the oldest member of the council. He was from a species so ancient that nobody remembered their original name. His body was frail, held together by machines, but his mind was still sharp. We do not break it. We do not question it. We simply obey. But why? Demanded. What will the humans do? Send their rusty ships against us? We would destroy them in a day. You would try, said softly. The room went quiet. Every eye turned to the small human woman. She was still looking at her notes, her expression calm. What did you say? Growled. Looked up, her eyes met his. There was no fear in them, no anger, just a strange, sad patience, like a mother watching a child reach for a flame. I said you would try, she repeated. Many have tried before you. They are not the first to think us weak. You are not the first to believe the old laws are just superstition. She paused. Do you know why there are no records of what happened to those species? Snorted, because it never happened. These are fairy tales. No, said Elder Mox, his ancient voice trembling. It is because there was nothing left to record. No survivors, no ruins, no bones, nothing. They were simply erased. as if they had never existed at all. The chamber was silent. Some of the younger ambassadors looked uncomfortable. They had heard the stories, of course. Every child in the galaxy heard the stories, but hearing them spoken aloud in the great council chamber made them feel more real, more frightening. Laughed, it was a harsh, ugly sound. You expect me to believe that these small, soft creatures could destroy entire species. Look at her. He pointed one massive arm at. She weighs nothing. I could break her with one hand. You could, agreed. She still did not raise her voice. But you would not live long enough to celebrate it. Behind her, Admiral shifted slightly. It was barely a movement at all, just a small adjustment of his weight. But every ambassador in the room noticed it. Some of them moved back in their seats without realizing why. The first law is simple, continued. You may insult us, you may cheat us in trade, you may even attack our soldiers if you are foolish enough to start a war. We will respond in kind as any species would, but our children, her voice grew quieter, softer, more dangerous. Our children are sacred. They are the one line that must never be crossed. This is not a threat. It is a warning, a kindness, because if that line is crossed, there will be no negotiation, no surrender, no mercy. There will only be fire. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed again and turned away. Fairy tales, he muttered. The humans have made the galaxy afraid of fairy tales. Elder Mox watched him go with sad, ancient eyes. He had lived for 3,000 years. He remembered things that others had forgotten. He remembered the burning, the screaming, the silence that came after. He looked at, she met his gaze and gave a small nod. They both knew what was coming. They both knew that would not listen. Some lessons could only be learned the hard way. And the galaxy was about to remember why the first law existed. Nu was a small colony on the edge of human space. It was not important. It had no military bases, no valuable resources, no strategic position. It was simply a farming world where families had come to build quiet lives far from the busy centers of the galaxy. The colony had only 10,000 people. Most of them were farmers who grew rice and vegetables in the rich alien soil. There were teachers and doctors and shopkeepers. There were old people who had retired there for the peace and young couples who wanted to raise their children under open skies. There were 412 children on Nu. They went to school in the morning, played in the fields in the afternoon, and helped their parents with chores in the evening. They knew nothing of galactic politics. They had never heard of They were just children, living simple, happy lives. Was 8 years old. She had short black hair that her mother cut every month, and she was missing her 2 front teeth. She loved to draw pictures of the strange alien birds that flew over the colony, and she wanted to be a pilot when she grew up. Her best friend was a boy named who lived on the farm next to hers. On the morning that changed everything was walking to school with. They were talking about a game they wanted to play after class. The sky was blue and clear, and the air smelled like the flowers that grew wild along the road. It was a perfect day. Then the ships came. Heard them before she saw them, a deep rumbling sound that made the ground shake. She looked up and saw dark shapes blocking out the sun, dozens of them, huge warships with weapons that glowed with angry red light. Run, whispered, but there was nowhere to run. The soldiers came down like a storm. They were giants in heavy armor, carrying weapons bigger than herself. They moved through the colony without mercy. Anyone who tried to fight was shot down. Anyone who tried to run was caught. Watched her teacher try to protect the students. The old woman stood in front of the classroom door with her arms spread wide. A soldier hit her once, and she did not get up again. The children were herded together like animals. They were crying and screaming, calling for their parents, looked for but could not find him in the crowd. She looked for her mother and father but could not see them anywhere. A commander walked through the group of children. He was even bigger than the others, with scars on his face and cold yellow eyes. He counted them like they were objects. "32," he said into his communicator. "We have 32 human young, the will be pleased." Did not understand what was happening. She did not know why these monsters had come to her home. She only knew that she was scared and that she wanted her mother. But she was also her father's daughter, and her father had always told her that even when she was scared, she should be brave. She should think. She should find a way. While the soldiers were not looking, reached into her pocket. She had a small communicator there. It was just a toy, really. Her father had made it for her so she could talk to when they were on different farms, but it could also send signals, short ones, emergency ones. Her fingers found the right buttons. She pressed them in the pattern her father had taught her. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, the old signal, the one that meant help. She did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if it would make any difference, but she had to try. A soldier grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a transport ship. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just looked up at the sky one last time and hoped that someone, somewhere, was listening. Far away in the great halls of the Galactic Council was making a speech. He stood tall and proud, his 4 arms spread wide, his voice booming through the chamber. "The age of human influence is over," he declared. "For too long, this council has been paralyzed by fear of an enemy that does not exist. For too long, we have obeyed laws that make no sense. Today, that ends." Ambassador was not in her seat. She had received a message 10 minutes ago and had left without a word. Her chair sat empty, and somehow that empty chair made the other ambassadors nervous. "I have taken 32 human children from one of their colonies," continued. "They are unharmed. They will remain unharmed as long as the humans agree to our terms. We demand that they withdraw from the outer systems. We demand that they reduce their fleet by half. We demand that they pay tribute to the Dominion." Elder Mox had closed his eyes. His ancient body was trembling, not with fear, with something else, something like grief. "These are reasonable demands," said. "The humans will accept them because they have no choice. Their children are in our hands. They will do anything to get them back. This is simply negotiation." "You fool," Elder Mox whispered. His voice was so quiet that only those closest to him could hear. "You absolute fool." Heard him, he turned with an angry smile. "Do you have something to say, Elder? Some ancient wisdom to share? Some old story to frighten us with?" Elder Mox opened his eyes. They were wet with tears. "I have lived for 3,000 years," he said. "I have seen wonders and horrors beyond counting. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, and in all that time I have only been truly afraid twice." He paused. "The first time was when I saw what the humans did to the Vex Empire. The Vex were powerful, proud. They ruled 100 worlds. They thought they were invincible. Then they killed a human child. One child, just one." His voice broke. "There are no Vex anymore. There is no record of them in any library. No ruins of their cities. No bones of their dead. Nothing. It is as if they never existed at all, because the humans did not just defeat them. They erased them completely, utterly, from history itself." The chamber was silent, even had stopped smiling. "And the second time?" someone asked. Elder Mox looked at with eyes full of ancient horror. "The second time is right now." At that moment, the doors of the council chamber burst open. Ambassador walked in. She was not alone. Behind her came Admiral and 12 human soldiers in black armor. His face was pale, her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. She said, "You have taken 32 children from New Colony. You have broken the first law of the galaxy." She took a breath. "You have 1 hour to return them. If they are harmed in any way, there will be no second chance, no negotiation, no mercy." Laughed, but it was a nervous laugh now. Something about the way the human stood, so still, so quiet, made his confidence waver. "And if I refuse?" he asked. Did not answer. She simply looked at her brother. Admiral stepped forward. For the first time in 15 years he spoke in the council chamber. His voice was soft, calm, terrifying. "Then we will come for them ourselves, and we will leave nothing behind." Somewhere in space, a signal was being passed from ship to ship. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The old signal, the one that had not been sent in 200 years. Across 1,000 worlds, the humans heard it, and they began to remember who they really were. The signal spread like fire through dry grass, from New to Earth, from Earth to every human colony in the galaxy. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The old code, the code that every human child learned before they learned to read. It meant one thing: our children are in danger. On the farming world of Haven, a woman stopped in the middle of harvesting wheat. She was old, with hair and a bent back. She had not held a weapon in 60 years, but when she heard the signal, something changed in her eyes. She put down her tools and walked toward the old barn behind her house. Inside that barn was a ship, a warship. It had been gathering dust for decades, waiting for a day that she had hoped would never come. On the trading station of Port Sira, a merchant closed his shop in the middle of the day. His customers complained. His employees asked what was wrong. He did not answer. He simply walked to the docking bay where his cargo ship was waiting. But it was not really a cargo ship. It had never been a cargo ship. The trading boxes were fake. Underneath them were weapons that could crack a planet in half. On Earth itself, in a quiet neighborhood in the old city of Seoul, a retired schoolteacher named Grandmother received the signal on a device she had carried for 70 years. She was 93 years old. Her hands shook. Her eyes were weak. But she still remembered her training. She still remembered the oath she had taken when she was young. She made 3 calls. Within an hour, 200,000 veterans had mobilized. This was the secret that the galaxy had forgotten. The humans had not become weak. They had not grown soft. They had simply chosen peace. They had put away their weapons and their anger and their terrible capacity for war. They had decided to be kind instead. But they had never forgotten how to fight. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Fury of Seoul. Around him, hundreds of officers worked in perfect silence. Screens showed the positions of every ship in the human fleet. More ships were arriving every minute. Old ships, hidden ships, ships that the galaxy had thought were myths. "How many do we have?" asked his second-in-command. A woman named Captain checked her display. 4,000 warships and counting, Admiral. More are coming out of hiding. The old veterans are waking up their reserves. 4,000 ships, and that was just the beginning. Looked at the screens. He remembered the last time the fleet had gathered like this. He had been a young man then, just a lieutenant. He remembered the burning worlds. He remembered the screaming. He remembered the silence that came after. He had hoped he would never see it again. "Any response from the?" he asked. "They are laughing at us, sir," said. Her voice was cold, controlled. "Has announced that the children will be executed if we do not surrender within 48 hours. Closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, something had changed in them. The calm was gone. In its place was something ancient and terrible, something that humans had buried deep inside themselves for 200 years. "Send a message to all ships," he said. "Full mobilization, every weapon online, every soldier ready." He paused. "And send a message to—" "What message, Admiral?" Looked at the stars through the viewport. His voice was soft. "Tell him he has made a mistake. Tell him that he has 48 hours, not to execute the children, but to say goodbye to everyone he has ever loved." Across the galaxy, the alien races watched in confusion and growing fear. They had never seen the humans like this. The peaceful traders and farmers they knew were gone. In their place were cold-eyed warriors who moved with terrifying purpose. Although military advisors began to panic, they had expected the humans to negotiate. They had expected crying and begging and desperate offers. They had not expected this. "How many ships do they have?" the war minister demanded. "We are not sure," his aide replied, his voice shaking. "Our sensors are showing impossible numbers, ships appearing from nowhere, ships we have never seen before, ships that should not exist." "That is impossible. Our intelligence said they had fewer than 500 warships." "Our intelligence was wrong, Minister, very wrong." On the prison ship where the children were being held, sat in a dark cell with the others. They were scared and hungry. Some of the younger ones had not stopped crying since they were taken, but kept them calm. She told them stories. She made them play games. She promised them that help was coming. She did not know if it was true. She just knew that she had to be brave. A guard came to their cell. He was huge and frightening, with tusks and yellow eyes. But when he looked at the children, there was something strange in his expression, something like fear. "Your people are coming," he said. His voice was quieter than expected. "They are coming with more ships than we have ever seen. They are coming with weapons we do not understand." He paused. "What are you humans? What are you really?" Looked up at him. She was just a little girl with missing teeth and messy hair. But in that moment, she spoke with a voice that seemed older than her years. "We are the ones who chose peace," she said. "We could have ruled the galaxy. We could have burned every world that stood against us, but we decided to be kind instead. We decided to build instead of destroy, to help instead of hurt." Her eyes grew hard. "But there is one thing we will never allow, one line that must never be crossed, and you crossed it." The guard stepped back. He had faced armies. He had killed enemies with his bare hands, but something about this small child made him want to run. "What happens now?" he asked. Did not answer. She did not need to. Because at that moment, the first human ships arrived in space. They came out of faster-than-light travel like ghosts appearing from nothing. One moment the sky was empty. The next moment it was filled with warships. The defense fleet moved to intercept. They were confident. They had thousands of ships. They had the finest weapons in the galaxy. They had never lost a battle. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, there was no defense fleet. There were only broken pieces of metal drifting through space. The humans had not lost a single ship. On the bridge of the Fury of Soul, Admiral watched the destruction without expression. "Send another message to," he said. "Tell him the clock is ticking. 47 hours remain." Captain looked at the screens. She saw the burning wreckage of the fleet. She saw the human ships advancing without pause. "Admiral," she said quietly, "they did not even slow us down." "No," agreed, "they did not." He looked toward the distant. Somewhere on that world was finally beginning to understand his mistake. But understanding would not save him. Nothing would save him now. The humans had awakened, and they would not stop until their children were home. Commander led the assault on the orbital stations. She was a small woman, even smaller than Ambassador, with a calm face and gentle eyes. Before the war, she had been a music teacher. She had taught children to play the piano. She had a collection of old Earth songs that she loved to sing. Now she was commanding 50 warships in a battle that would be remembered for 1,000 years. "All units attack pattern Delta," she said into her communicator. Her voice was as soft as if she were telling a student to practice their scales. "Focus fire on their shield generators. Do not let any escape pods reach the surface." The stations were massive. They had been built over centuries, designed to withstand any attack. Each one had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Each one was defended by thousands of soldiers and hundreds of automated weapons. The humans took them in 3 hours. Watch from her command ship as the last station fell. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like flowers blooming and dying. She felt nothing, not joy, not sadness, not even anger, just a cold, clear focus on the mission. "Commander, we have reports from the surface," her aide said. "Admiral has begun the ground assault." Nodded. "Good. Continue orbital bombardment of military targets only. no civilian casualties unless absolutely necessary. This was the human way of war, precise, efficient, terrifying. They did not burn cities or slaughter innocents. They simply destroyed anyone who stood between them and their objective, no more, no less. On the surface of the admiral walked through the streets of the capital city. He was alone. No bodyguards, no soldiers, just one man in a simple black uniform walking through a city of giants. The soldiers tried to stop him. They came in waves, firing weapons and swinging blades. They were brave. They fought with everything they had. It did not matter. Moved through them like water flowing around stones. His movements were so fast that the eye could barely follow. One moment a soldier was attacking him. The next moment that soldier was on the ground and was already past him, walking toward the palace. He did not kill anyone who did not attack first. That was the rule. That had always been the rule. Humans did not murder. Humans did not slaughter. But anyone who raised a weapon against them would learn why the galaxy had once called them the Wrath. The palace was a massive building of black stone and gold decorations. It had stood for 2,000 years, a symbol of power and pride. Guards surrounded it, the best warriors they had ever produced. Stopped at the front gate, he looked up at the guards on the walls. His voice carried clearly in the silent night. "I am here for the children," he said. "Bring them out and I will leave. Fight me and I will come through you." The guards opened fire. What happened next became legend. Stories would be told about it for generations. Songs would be sung. Parents would whisper it to their children as a warning about what happens when you anger the humans. Moved. The guards fell. The gates broke. The walls crumbled. And through it all walked forward, never running, never stopping, never showing any emotion at all, just walking slowly and steadily toward the throne room where waited. Was not alone. He had surrounded himself with his best guards, his most loyal soldiers. He had weapons pointed at every door and window. He had even brought the human children into the throne room, thinking they could be used as shields. But when walked through the door, all of that meant nothing. The guards attacked, disarmed them without killing them. He was merciful when he could be. He was precise when he had to be. In 60 seconds, every guard in the room was unconscious on the floor. Only remained standing. There was huge, twice size, with 4 powerful arms and skin like armor. He had killed hundreds of enemies in combat. He had never been defeated. "Come then, human," he growled. "Show me what you are." Did not speak, he simply moved. The fight lasted 8 seconds. When it was over, was on his knees, all 4 of his arms broken, his face pressed against the cold stone floor. Stood above him, not even breathing hard. The children said, his voice was calm, empty. "Are they hurt?" Could not speak, he could only shake his head. Looked toward the group of children huddled in the corner. 32 small faces looked back at him with wide eyes. Some of them were crying. Some of them were too scared to make any sound at all. Then a small girl stepped forward. She had short black hair and was missing her 2 front teeth. She looked up with eyes that held no fear at all. "Are you here to take us home?" asked. Knelt down so he was at her level. For the first time, his face softened. For the first time, he looked like a human being instead of a weapon of war. "Yes," he said, "I am here to take you home." Nodded, then she reached out and took his hand. "Good," she said, "my mother will be worried." Picked her up gently, as if she were made of glass. He looked at the other children and spoke softly. "Come with me, you are safe now. No one will hurt you anymore." One by one, the children stood up and gathered around him. They took each other's hands. They followed him out of the throne room, past the unconscious guards, through the broken gates, into the courtyard where human soldiers were waiting to protect them. Behind them lay broken on the floor of his own palace. His empire was in ruins. His fleet was destroyed. His pride was shattered. But he was alive, The humans had let him live. This was not mercy, this was something worse. Because living meant he would have to face what came next. Living meant he would have to watch as the galaxy judged him for what he had done. Living meant he would have to spend the rest of his life knowing that he had broken the one rule that should never be broken. And he would have to live with the memory of a small human man walking through an army as if it were nothing, walking through walls and guards and weapons, walking through everything that could throw at him without slowing down even once. Closed his eyes and wished he had listened to the old stories. But it was too late for that now. It was too late for anything now. The humans had their children back, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The children came home on a beautiful spring morning. The sky over Nu was clear and blue, just as it had been on the day they were taken, but everything else had changed. The entire colony had gathered at the landing field. Parents stood with tears streaming down their faces. Grandparents clutched photographs of the children they had feared they would never see again. Brothers and sisters pushed to the front of the crowd, desperate for the first glimpse of their missing family members. When the human ships appeared in the sky, a sound rose from the crowd. It was not cheering. It was something deeper than that, something raw and primal, the sound of relief so powerful that it could not be contained in words. The ships landed gently, their engines humming like the purr of sleeping cats. The doors opened. 32 children walked out into the sunlight. The crowd surged forward. Parents grabbed their children and held them so tightly it seemed they would never let go. Mothers sobbed and kissed every inch of their children's faces. Fathers tried to speak, but found that their voices had abandoned them. For several long minutes, there was nothing but crying and laughter, and the sound of families being made whole again. Found her parents near the back of the crowd. Her mother was too emotional to move. Her father was trying to be strong but failing completely. When ran into their arms, all three of them fell to the ground together, holding each other as if the world might end at any moment. "I knew you would come," whispered into her mother's ear. "I knew someone would hear me." Her mother could not answer. She could only hold her daughter and cry. Far away, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, a different kind of gathering was taking place. Every ambassador in the galaxy had been summoned. Every species that had ever joined the council was represented. The room was so full that people had to stand against the walls. Ambassador stood at the center of the chamber. She was still wearing the same simple clothes she always wore. Her hair was still tied back neatly. Her voice was still soft, but something about her had changed. Something in her eyes was harder now, colder. Behind her stood Admiral and Commander and the 12 soldiers who had walked into this chamber weeks ago. They stood perfectly still, their faces showing nothing. "The children of Nu have been returned," said. Her voice carried to every corner of the room. "They are unharmed. They are home. This matter is concluded." "And what of the?" asked one of the ambassadors. "What punishment will they face?" Looked at the empty chair where had once sat. The ambassador was there instead, a smaller and more humble creature than had ever been. He could not meet her eyes. "The Dominion will be relocated," said. "All of them, every member of their species. They will be given a world on the far edge of the galaxy, away from any human colony. They will be given resources to survive. They will be given a chance to rebuild their civilization." The chamber was silent. This was more mercy than anyone had expected. "However," continued, and her voice grew colder, "they will have no fleet, no weapons, no military of any kind. They will be watched constantly. If they ever leave their world without permission, if they ever threaten another species, if they ever break the laws of this council again." She paused. "There will be no third chance." The ambassador bowed his head. "We accept these terms. We are grateful for your mercy." "It is not mercy," said quietly. "It is practicality. Destroying your species would teach the galaxy nothing. Letting you survive, diminished and humiliated, will teach everyone everything they need to know." She turned to address the full chamber. Her eyes moved across the hundreds of faces watching her, aliens of every shape and size, species that had lived for millions of years, civilizations that spanned entire galaxies. 300 years ago, humanity made a choice, she said. We had the power to rule everything. We had weapons that could crack suns and ships that could cross the galaxy in hours. We had soldiers who could not be defeated and scientists who could reshape reality itself. She paused. But we chose peace instead. We put away our weapons. We buried our anger. We decided to be farmers and traders and teachers. We decided to be kind. The chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. That choice was not weakness, continued. It was strength. It takes no strength to destroy. It takes no courage to kill. Any fool can burn a world. Only the truly powerful can choose not to. Her voice grew harder. But there is one line that must never be crossed, one rule that exists above all others. Our children are sacred. They are the future. They are everything we fight to protect. And anyone who harms them will learn what we really are. She looked around the chamber one last time. We chose peace. We chose kindness. We chose to build instead of destroy, but make no mistake. Her eyes were like ice. We have not forgotten how to be the wrath. We have simply chosen not to be. Do not make us choose differently. The silence lasted for a long time after she finished speaking. Then, one by one, the ambassadors began to bow their heads. It was a gesture of respect, of fear, of understanding. Elder Mox rose from his seat. His ancient body trembled as he walked to the center of the chamber. He turned to face the gathered species. Let this day be remembered, he said. Let the story of Nu be written in every library. Let it be taught in every school. Let every child in the galaxy know what happened here. His voice cracked with emotion. The first law exists for a reason. Do not assault the human children. This is not a suggestion. This is not a guideline. This is the most important rule in the universe. He looked at and bowed deeply. Thank you for showing mercy to the. Thank you for not doing what you could have done. Accepted his bow with a small nod. We do not want to be the wrath anymore, she said softly. We want to be neighbors, partners, friends. We want to build a galaxy where every child of every species can grow up safe and happy. She paused. But we will protect our own, always, no matter the cost. The council session ended. The ambassadors returned to their worlds. The story spread across the galaxy like light spreading through darkness. And on the little farming world of Nu, life slowly returned to normal. The children went back to school. The farmers went back to their fields. The sun rose and set, and the seasons changed, and new families were born. Grew up to be a pilot, just like she had always dreamed. She flew cargo ships between colonies, carrying food and medicine and supplies to people who needed them. Sometimes she would land on distant worlds and find children who had heard her story. They would ask her what it was like to be rescued by the human fleet. They would ask if she was scared. They would ask if the old stories about humans were really true. She would smile and tell them the truth. Humans are kind, she would say. They are peaceful and gentle and good. They build things instead of breaking them. They help people instead of hurting them. Then her smile would fade a little, and something older would appear in her eyes. But they love their children more than anything in the universe, and anyone who forgets that will learn a lesson that the galaxy will never forget. The first law was never broken again, not by anyone. The story of Nu became legend, then history, then something even deeper, a fundamental truth that every species understood in their bones. The galaxy was full of wonders and dangers. There were black holes and supernovas and creatures that imagination. There were wars and plagues and disasters that could end civilizations. But through it all, one thing remained constant. The humans protected their children. And heaven help anyone who tried to stop them.